Have you ever felt a deep, crushing sensation in your chest? A sense of profound and overwhelming defeat after a project failed, a relationship ended, or a dream didn't come to fruition? That feeling of not being enough, of having tried your absolute best and still falling short. It's a universal pain, a fear that we are all taught to avoid at all costs. We are constantly told to strive for perfection, to chase success, and to never, ever fail. But what if that conventional wisdom is a lie? What if the path to becoming a true winner, a genuinely successful person, isn't about avoiding failure, but about actively and courageously embracing it as your greatest teacher? What if I told you that the fear of failure itself is the single most significant obstacle standing in the way of your true potential, and that an ancient philosophy, forged in the fires of discipline and self-mastery, holds a revolutionary, liberating secret that can fundamentally change how you perceive every single setback, every stumble, and every moment of doubt? Today, we're going to dive into this uncomfortable truth. We will explore the timeless wisdom of the Stoics, a mindset that can transform your biggest defeats into your greatest victories. This isn't about magical thinking or finding some way to pretend everything is perfect. It's about a profound and powerful psychological shift that can turn your worst fears into your greatest strengths. By the end of this journey, you will have a clear, actionable path to stop fearing failure and start using it as the indispensable tool it was always meant to be. 1. The lie we're told about failure. We live in a world where failure is largely seen as a final, definitive destination. We are taught to view it as the opposite of success, a brick wall we desperately try to avoid. Society rewards only the victorious, and every social media feed is a highlight reel of flawless achievements, from perfect job promotions to dream vacations and effortless successes. But this is an incomplete and dangerously misleading story. In reality, a life without failure is a life without growth. It is a life lived in the shallow end, afraid to venture out into the deeper waters where true learning and profound character are forged. The Stoics, in their profound wisdom, understood this intuitively. They knew that life is inherently unpredictable and chaotic, and that setbacks are an inevitable, natural part of the human experience. As Marcus Aurelius so wisely put it, the impediment to action advances action. This isn't just a clever phrase, it is a profound declaration that failure is not an enemy to be avoided, but an integral part of the very path toward success. The road to any significant achievement is not a smooth, straight line. It is a winding, bumpy path littered with stumbles, missteps, and occasional falls. Think about the first time you tried to learn a new skill, perhaps a musical instrument, a new language, or even riding a bicycle. You didn't miraculously become an expert on the very first try. You stumbled, you made mistakes, you probably even fell. But each failure provided invaluable feedback. It showed you what didn't work, what you needed to adjust, and where you needed to improve. You didn't give up after the first fall. You used the fall as a lesson, and in doing so, you learned to ride with grace and confidence. Why then do we treat failure in our adult lives, in our careers, in our relationships, in our personal growth, so differently? Why do we see it as a sign to give up rather than an opportunity to learn? The true winner is not the person who never fails. The true winner is the person who courageously learns from every single failure and uses those lessons to become stronger, smarter, and more resilient. This is the very foundation of the Stoic mindset, the belief that our true power lies not in avoiding failure, but in how we choose to respond to it. This is the lie we must expose and overcome if we ever hope to achieve anything truly meaningful in our lives. So we know that failure is inevitable, but how do you handle that crushing, painful moment of defeat without letting it consume you? What's the secret to not just surviving a setback, but using that very moment as a springboard to an even greater success? 2. The power of how you react. In every moment of defeat, we are presented with a crucial choice. We can choose to be a victim of our circumstances, to wallow in self-pity and frustration, or we can choose to be a student of our circumstances, to learn, adapt, and grow. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus was a former slave who found freedom not through external fortune, but through internal mastery. He knew that the only thing we have absolute control over is our mind, our thoughts, and our responses. Everything else, he taught, is an external event beyond our control. When a project fails, you may not have control over the outcome, but you have absolute control over your reaction. Will you let it break you, or will you use it to build your resilience? Will you point fingers and blame others, or will you take personal responsibility and search for the lesson? This isn't just an abstract, philosophical idea. It is a profoundly practical tool for everyday life. Imagine a scenario. A small business owner named David launches a new product he has spent a year tirelessly developing. On launch day, the website crashes, the marketing campaign goes awry, and the product gets a slew of negative reviews. A crushing, seemingly definitive failure. The conventional reaction would be despair, anger, and a quick retreat. But David, having cultivated a Stoic mindset, chose a different path. Instead of lashing out, he immediately focused on what he could control. He calmly took the website offline, began systematically responding to every single negative review, and scheduled a meeting with his team, not to find someone to blame, but to analyze what went wrong and what they could learn. Within a week, the website was fixed. The reviews were addressed with humble transparency, and they had a clear plan to relaunch with improvements based on the feedback. The initial failure was a public, painful experience, but because of his response, it became a powerful story of resilience and integrity. The second launch was a massive success, not just because the product was better, but because the market respected his character and his willingness to learn from his mistakes. He didn't win by avoiding failure. He won by using failure as a tool for growth. The power is not in the event itself, but in the space between the event and your reaction. In that space, you can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to be a winner. Your response to failure is your true victory. That sounds great in theory, but what about when the pain is fresh and the obstacle feels impossible? What's the secret to turning a mountain into a molehill and using the very thing that stands in your way to become the way forward? Let's talk about the Stoic strategy for turning any obstacle into an opportunity. 3. Turning obstacles into pathways. Marcus Aurelius's timeless words, "What stands in the way becomes the way," are not just a poetic thought. They are a profound guide to a practical, actionable strategy for life. The Stoics were masters of this concept, understanding that every single challenge, every obstacle, every setback is not an external barrier designed to halt your progress, but an opportunity to practice a specific virtue, to develop a new skill, or to strengthen your character. When a project fails, don't view it as a dead end. Instead, see it as a new path revealing itself. The failure shows you precisely where the old path was flawed, and it forces you to find a better, more effective way forward. A great example of this is the story of a young entrepreneur who spent a year building a mobile app that, on launch, failed to gain any traction. It was a crushing disappointment. She could have given up, but she chose the Stoic path. Instead of seeing the app's failure as her own, she saw it as invaluable feedback. She realized the app wasn't the right product, but the process of building it, the coding, the marketing, the late nights, had given her a new skill set and a new understanding of her industry. The failure of the app became the stepping stone to her next venture, a digital marketing agency, which became wildly successful. The obstacle was the failure of the app. The pathway was the knowledge she gained by navigating it. If you lose your job, the lesson might be in understanding the fragility of external security and the need to build an internal sense of purpose. The skill you're forced to develop might be networking, resilience, or the courage to start your own business. The obstacle is not your enemy. It is your training partner. It has appeared in your life to give you the exact training you need to reach the next level. This mindset is not about being naively optimistic. It's about being brutally honest and relentlessly resourceful. It's about accepting the reality of the situation and then, with unwavering resolve, finding a way to make it serve your greater purpose. When you practice this, obstacles no longer feel like roadblocks. They feel like invitations to a challenge. We've talked about what to do after a failure. But what about what failure reveals about us? It's not just a test of our strength. It's a mirror that shows us our deepest insecurities and our hidden weaknesses. How do you use that moment of vulnerability to become a truly powerful person? 4. Failure as a mirror for growth. If you've ever experienced a truly significant failure, a failed exam, a major professional setback, or a painful personal rejection, you know that it can be a deeply uncomfortable, deeply vulnerable experience. It can make you feel exposed, inadequate, and fundamentally flawed. But this very discomfort, this very exposure, is precisely where your greatest opportunity for growth lies. The Stoics understood that self-awareness is the bedrock of all virtue, and there is no better teacher of self-awareness than failure. When you fail, it is a mirror that shows you, with unflinching honesty, where you need to improve. It reveals the cracks in your armor. Perhaps the project failed not because of bad luck, but because of a lack of discipline. Perhaps the relationship ended because you weren't courageous enough to communicate your true feelings. Perhaps you didn't get the promotion because you were afraid to step out of your comfort zone. Failure gives you a map to your weaknesses. It is a gift, a painful but invaluable piece of feedback. A master craftsman doesn't get frustrated when a piece of wood cracks. They use that knowledge to understand the grain better and to refine their technique for the next time. In the same way, a Stoic uses failure to understand their own weaknesses and to build a better version of themselves. For example, imagine a musician who auditions for a prestigious orchestra and gets rejected. Instead of blaming the judges or losing heart, she gets to the core of the feedback she received. Her performance lacked emotional depth. This feedback, this failure, becomes a moment of profound revelation. It shows her that her practice has been too technical and that she needs to dig deeper into the emotional core of the music. She spends the next year working with a new coach, not just on the notes, but on the feeling, the story, the connection. Her next audition is a triumph, not just because her playing is technically perfect, but because it is now infused with soul and feeling. The initial failure was the catalyst for her to become the artist she was meant to be. This is the power of using failure as a mirror. It doesn't tell you to give up. It tells you exactly what to work on next. It provides you with the clarity and the brutal honesty you need to stop guessing and start growing. What about the people who try to play it safe and avoid failure at all costs? They might never fall down, but they're missing out on the most powerful lessons life has to offer. Let's talk about the uncomfortable truth about a life without failure and why it's a high price to pay. 5. The cost of never failing. In a world obsessed with perfection, it's easy to fall into the trap of playing it safe. We avoid challenges that might lead to failure, we stay in our comfort zones, and we refuse to take risks. We live a life designed to avoid falling down. But this life, while seemingly secure, comes with a hidden and incredibly high cost. The uncomfortable truth is that a life without failure is a life without growth. It is a life lived in fear, and it is the antithesis of the Stoic path. Think of a muscle that is never exercised. It will remain soft and weak, completely unprepared for any real exertion. In the same way, a person who never faces failure will remain emotionally and mentally fragile. When a real challenge inevitably appears, a sudden job loss, a serious illness, or a major life event, they will be completely unprepared. They will lack the mental and emotional strength to handle the adversity, because they never practiced it. The Stoics knew that courage and resilience are not innate gifts. They are muscles that must be exercised, and there is no better exercise for them than facing failure, learning from it, and getting back up. The person who has faced and overcome 10 failures is 100 times stronger than the person who has never failed. They are not just more capable, they are more confident, more resourceful, and more resilient. They have a deep, quiet knowing that they can handle whatever life throws at them, because they have already been through the fire and emerged stronger. The cost of never failing is never truly living. It is a life lived in a small, self-imposed prison of fear and self-doubt. It is a life of missed opportunities and unfulfilled potential. The courage to fail, the willingness to fall down and get back up, is not just a part of the journey to success. It is the journey itself. We've learned that failure is our greatest teacher, but knowing it and doing it are two different things. How exactly do you find the strength to stand up, dust yourself off, and continue moving forward after a crushing defeat? What's the final, most crucial step on the Stoic path to becoming a winner? 6. The uncomfortable practice of bouncing back. The moment of defeat is painful. There is no escaping that reality. But a Stoic knows that while they can't control the pain, they can control what they do next. The final, most crucial step in turning failure into victory is the uncomfortable, necessary practice of bouncing back. This isn't a miraculous event. It is a conscious, deliberate choice you make every single day. When you fail, take a moment to feel the disappointment, but do not let it consume you. Then, shift your focus to what you can control. You can control your next thought. You can control your next action. You can control the lessons you choose to take from the experience. This is where the true work begins. The Stoic path is one of relentless progress, not perfection. It's about taking one small, courageous step after another. If you've just failed at a business venture, your first step isn't to start another one. It's to meticulously analyze what went wrong, to reach out to a mentor for advice, or to take a class on a skill you now know you're missing. If a relationship has ended, your first step isn't to jump into a new one. It's to reflect on the lessons learned, to practice self-compassion, and to focus on your own personal growth. Bouncing back is a practice of daily discipline. It is the conscious decision to get up a little earlier, to work a little harder, to read a little more, and to act a little more courageously than you did the day before. The true winner is not the one who never falls down. It's the one who gets up every single time, stronger and wiser than before. As we bring this profound conversation to a close, remember that the most uncomfortable truth you can ever learn is also the most liberating. Failure is not your enemy. It is your greatest teacher. The path to becoming a true winner, a person of genuine character and unshakable resilience, is not about avoiding defeat. It is about a profound willingness to face it head-on, to learn from it, and to use it as an invaluable tool for your growth. The lesson here is clear and actionable. Don't wait for external validation or ideal circumstances to become the person you were meant to be. Start now. Begin with the mindset that you are already capable, already strong, and already equipped to handle whatever life throws your way. Each small, deliberate action, each moment you choose to embody your best self, compounds over time, building a character forged in the fires of discipline and self-awareness. This journey will inevitably have its challenges, its moments of doubt, and its inevitable failures. But like the ancient Stoics, you now possess the profound wisdom to view these obstacles not as roadblocks, but as invaluable opportunities for growth, for learning, and for strengthening your inner resolve. So I invite you to make this mindset your daily companion. Let it be the gentle yet firm nudge that guides your choices, informs your reactions, and propels you forward. Embrace the humility to learn from your weaknesses and the courage to act in alignment with your highest values. In doing so, you will not only transform your own life, but also inspire those around you to embark on their own journeys of self-mastery and excellence. Stay strong, stay grounded in your purpose, and remember that the pursuit of your best self is the most profound and rewarding journey you will ever undertake.